Now, Nigeria's security in 2024 has been defined by significant challenges and pivotal events that have drawn both national and international attention. From continued insurgency to the northeast to heightened separatist tensions and evolving threats, the nation's security apparatus has been tested. To look at defense and security in the past year, I have joining me in the studio, Head of News Operations, Uzonna Ononye. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC News. Last administration, we had the administration fighting insecurity to ensure that Nigerians have better sleep night, but this administration has been doing so much to get on top of the situation. But help us have a review of how much this administration has done in terms of fighting against insecurity.
Insecurity in Nigeria has been a growing scenario from the past 15 years. From different phases, it was initially just Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. It controlled some local government areas in that region, and it gradually expanded. And we had series of farmers headers clashes in some regions, particularly in the north central Benue State, particularly where thousands of people were also killed or affected and rendered homeless within that period. And then banditry expanded within the north, from the northeast to the northwest and across that region. Now we also added the insecurity in the southeast, particularly as a result of the activities of the now proscribed indigenous people of Biafra and other splinter groups that they have in that area. This is saying that we have dealt with this for a long time. That's right. However, what stands out within this period is that there has been a growing level of achievement by the military and other agencies. There's been some kind of harmony. In the past 10 years or thereabout, what we have is where the security agencies are working in silos. There's very little coordination and collaboration amongst them, where you have intelligence and not being used. But this time we've seen a little difference, yes, in that regard, and it's not been perfect. The result has not been wholesome, but there has been an improvement, great improvement, because right now we do not have local government areas where the terrorists have hoist their flags, declaring control of those areas. We do not have it as it used to be some years back. Interesting stuff.
But then Nigeria actually suffered a setback during especially with the death of the last Lieutenant General, the Chief of Army Staff, Tarid Lagbaja. Now we have Olukoyede, who is taking over the reins or the baton of fighting insecurity, taking war to the terrorists themselves. But do you think that we are actually on the right trajectory ever since we now have another person, manning the affairs of the security agencies?
It's a bit early to judge the current Chief of Army Staff. He's not been there for long, but he has shown that he's not an office person, he's an operational person. From the few things that he had done, he has demonstrated that he's hands-on in dealing with insecurity and high-level insurgency and terrorism that we've witnessed in Nigeria. Late Chief of Army Staff General Lagbaja was outstanding, and a lot of things that people said, during when he died, bear testimony to all of this, that he wasn't just a soldier, he was a leader. He led from the front, and there's no doubt to how he achieved the records or the results that he achieved within the period, because he was moving in front and his men were following him from behind. And it seems right now that the current Chief of Army Staff is also building on that trajectory, on that trend of leading from the front, where he has people that are working. He understands what it takes to fight terrorism. And so when he's telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it, he's coming from the position of knowledge and information. You understand? So I think that in the next 6 months, it will be clear that whether or not the current Chief of Army Staff is making the right impact or not. But right now, it might be a bit early to properly and objectively assess him.
Absolutely. That remains to be seen for especially the Nigerian people who are waiting to ensure that Nigeria is actually safe. But then, if you look at the insecurity trajectory, we had a the crisis in the southeast actually simmered. We had the secessionist agenda, we had those who are actually pro-Biafra, etc., and some of the part what he had been doing in destroying, or let's say causing problems in southeast. Now he has been arrested, and Nigeria is also working to extradite him. How do you see his arrest playing out in southeast? Or do you think we would definitely be able to extradite him at the end of the day?
I would like to first of all mention that the situation in the southeast has gone beyond the agitation by the indigenous people of Biafra and other, their associates. It's become pure criminality. The governor of Anambra State a few days ago made that very clear, that this is no longer an agitation, this is pure criminality. And it got to this point because, one, there are several factors that contributed to it. One was that when it started, they were not taken seriously and they began to expand. Two was that the people themselves were lukewarm and undecided on which path to stand. Are we going to start with the government to fight these people, or are we going to stand with them? So it created that undecided atmosphere that gave room for the criminals to expand and even render the police a bit inactive in the southeast, until recently that the police started to re-energize themselves. The arrest of Simon Ekpa is not the end of the road, has not brought security to the southeast. Will it bring it? We are likely going to see something, in that direction. However, the boys that are in the forest who are allegedly being funded by Simon Ekpa, by the time they stop getting the fund from the right source, they were getting it, and they are still armed with all the stuff that they've taken from the soldiers and the police that they killed along the line. What are they going to do with it? So that brings a huge question at the doorstep of the Nigerian security agencies and authorities to critically look at this. Arresting Simon Ekpa will not restore security in the southeast. It requires a lot more.
Absolutely.
Now, to the question of extraditing him, bringing him back to Nigeria, to what purpose? What's the purpose? Is the purpose for the government of Nigeria to take credit that we are able to jail him? We have Nnamdi Kanu already in detention in Nigeria. Adding Simon Ekpa, will that solve any problem? It's important for the government and other agencies that are actually looking into all of that to think through all of this critically and be sure that any step that is being taken by government is geared towards getting the right result. You might bring in Simon Ekpa here, and the agitation, they will extend the sit at home from Monday and add Tuesday. Monday will be for Nnamdi Kanu, Tuesday sit at home will now be for Simon Ekpa. Would that solve the problem? There is need to think through very well. If getting Simon Ekpa back to Nigeria will mean that they will go head on and crush whatever that looks like Simon Ekpa and his denigrates, fine, let's go ahead with it. But if not, it's important to think through it.
Well, we'll continue to monitor trends and situations in the southeast, especially security across the nation, and see what happens next. Nigerians are actually waiting. Head of News Operation, Uzonna Ononye, thank you so much for your keen observation.
My pleasure.
Thank you. You're watching the Media News. We'll take a break.